So, yet again, I look at the Daily Mail. A much drier Rishi Sunak is joined by his wife and ministers as he launches Tory election campaign with attack on Labour just hours after an unveiling July 4th vote, despite some backbenchers saying early poll date is a death wish. Well, I've long said that what you're looking at, and when it comes to politicians, is underling occultists from various networks, whatever fraternity, fucking whatever belief system within the occult, theosophy, humanism, the New Age, blah blah blah, Freemasonry, especially speculative, Eastern Star, OTO. I mean, it's a shit show list of interconnected death cults. And many of them get their jollies, and because remember, their occult life is, in many respects, more important than your perception of their day-to-day, seriously. So obligation-wise, you want to ascend to a different degree, you want to go on and pursue whatever degree system, etc., etc. You've got obligations all the way through this, And it is. I mean, I will agree with David Icke's description of political parties being changed. It's the changing of the paper on the birdcage floor. Yeah, that I wouldn't disagree with it. I would say that's a fairly valid comment. My issue with David Icke and the likes is the lizard aspect, promotion of the New Age movement. That's not a wall you see in front of you. It's just a bunch of dimensional particles, blah, blah, blah. And of course he's tasting, clothing over a period of decades. If you look at that, and it was done by fine people like Bill Cooper, Alan Watts, various others, who, showed up the shortfalls, especially when Icke and the noughties especially used to say, and people are waking up at the rate of knots. They may be cocky now, the government, but that's about to change. And then, of course, 2004, 5, 6, 7. And he kept coming up with the same pish, coming out with the same pish. And then he's not so much seen these days and replaced by other fucking, controlled ops. And, of course, the gullible go along with it. It's not just the public, it's the people that perceive they're awake to some extent, and they can't see past people like David Icke, Alex Jones, let me think another one, Paul Joseph Watson, others of that same ilk, Yorkie Bar guy online, the guy, I'm just a humble trucker, and various others, it's an endless shit show list of controlled ops. Some people could say I'm cynical, but, you've been doing this long enough. It's not just me out there. Come on, there must be plenty of you out there who know the same. Or more. But, his acting gig will be over soon, I would say. But he'll be on to bigger and better. And let's face it, he's already at least $500 million plus, pounds equivalent, through marriage and... when you look at certain, things he did in the recent past, not so recent, but the noughties setting up certain funds and the names of those funds, which, happen to have very sort of similar names to stuff that maybe Aleister Crowley was a fan of. But, most people don't look at any of that kind of stuff. But, yeah. Politicians are but underling occultist actors, well-paid, extremely good actors. Because no matter who goes in there, and then, of course, remember the first thing they say, oh, God, we've seen the books. That old chestnut. We're all going to have to, I know you naively put us in because you thought, we promised we'd do X, Y, and Z. But now we've seen the books. That historically you get that pish all the time. We're going to have to do more with less, such and such. The last bunch of fucking psycho-sociopathic, actors have left us with such, and it is, and it just doesn't matter, Labour, Conservative, name the fucking countries, the usual pish, we've seen the books. And so whatever they promise when they come in that was anything good goes to the wayside. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I'll give you an example. 97. 1997. Labour gets in. Things are only gonna get better. You know, I know. Fucking horrible at karaoke. But, yeah, what was it? Things can only get better. And of course, the smile of Tony Blair. And they became more perceived right wing than the Conservatives, you know, and then you know, at some stage, the Conservatives get back in and they look more like Labour. And, you know, of course, you know, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't matter what costume they're wearing. They're all bought and paid for. And until people realise that, nothing's changing. And that's another thing about the alternative media. They'll bump their gums about the WEF occasionally, various other things, but they'll never talk about the troops on the ground. And they'll never talk about the fact you're not dealing with 1%. You're dealing with roughly about 10, because when you start looking at all these interconnected shit show groups, it's a religion. It's just an intertwined occult religion, of which many of them make out like bandits financially, and you know, have a view of the rest of us that you just wouldn't believe. But most people could tell you every aspect of the soaps they watch. Binge watch whatever else, or bounce up and down various dating sites, and, you know, you could talk about this for hours, but the point is very little comprehension to what they're actually dealing with. Hence the reason why these occultists are so successful. And you could say, God, Scott, what a waffle. And that would be fair. I mean, you've been doing, you know, I've been doing it for quite literally decades and lost quite a few channels. But anyway, how about this? Royal family will postpone public engagements that distract from election campaign. Buckingham Palace announces. Well, this is a very odd thing. What an odd thing to say. It's not something that's normally heard of from royalty, but in this instance, and of course, when you go to the comments, the AI allowed through, top comment, this statement is very unexpected. Not sure if this would be the norm or if there are reasons they don't want to divulge at this time. A reply. Think they wanted to be part of the working from home trend that seems to be a way of life now. Pardon me. Another one. This all seems rather odd. Is it just me? Don't get why they they would need to cancel any engagements unless it's literally the direction or the direct lead up. Basically, the royals cancel everything and look to do even less before their 3-month holidays or summer holidays. I am a monarchist. It certainly hasn't been the same since ER II. Sadly passed. I do wish all the best for the royals, mostly a swift recovery for Charles and Catherine. But since, at the very least, Christmas, I do believe that their absence has really shown that RF don't really do all that much and that they really haven't been overly missed. I would argue behind the scenes they'll just go on from strength to strength, but they really are getting a bit pissed off with humour in the public, especially as the public, in their perception, and quite rightly so in many regards, is becoming dumber by the day. Imagine having to humour that. And behind the scenes, they are quite literally seen as gods in amongst these occult networks. It's not just them, it's various royal families around the world, then various priesthoods, obviously institutions like the Vatican, which is part of the 3 states. I mean, you know, it's a complex subject, but yes, odd. And then, of course, seriously, right under the main story, think about it really, one of the main stories. Panic buyers flock to emergency prepper to grab essentials after ministers urged Brits to start a national crisis emergency kit. A supplier insists stocking up is common sense. And, you know, you look at it and it's all timing. It truly is. Of course it is. As owners of a survivalist shop insist, stocking up is common sense amid panic buyers flocking to the emergency prepper after ministers urged Brits to stash 3 days' worth of stock. 3 days' worth of stock. Think about that. Lee Price has noticed a steady increase in customers heading to his shop, the Bug Out, in Wales since the government launched a prepper's website. It warned families should gather an emergency kit of tinned food, batteries and bottled water for use in a crisis. Well, anybody who's clued up who has wealth. That won't be me, because, hey, there's plenty, over the years who have listened, but it's not exactly been financially beneficial. Certainly for them it has, but not for me. But yeah, they can afford, but they wouldn't be doing tin food as such. The Clued Up use jars, drying processes, various other things, but they certainly wouldn't entertain things with bisphenol A's and S's and can linings. Batteries, yeah, that makes sense, blah, blah, blah. Bottled water, no, not for the Clued Up, because obviously they know they're ingesting vast amounts of plastic microparticles. What is it? The average bottle of plastic bottle of water contains something like 200,000 microparticles. The average individual in the UK consumes apparently something like a credit card's worth, size-wise or weight-wise, of plastics a week. You cannot convince the public about how much they're toxifying themselves. And while I'd be a fan of things like, from what that looks like there, I think that's one of these Berkey water filters, but I've always wondered, why do they still use plastics in the tap aspect and all the rest of it? After all, there's not a plastic out there that doesn't have some toxicity to it. It might say it's BPA free, and that legally may be correct, but it'll have BPS or variations on the theme. But try telling the public, and of course they go, "Oh, you're being negative, Nelly. We've got to do something at least." Well, apply some common sense to your day-to-day as regards what you consume. Take an interest in all those things for the right reasons. Your health, which is your responsibility. Because if you leave it to government, you will have a shortened life. That's for sure. Anyway, I hope this video has been of some use. Please share if you care. Thumb it up for the same reason. And if you like what I do, support the channel, and I'll speak to you soon.